MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day. We've got the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry coming on here on a daily basis. And of course, you got to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. We've certainly had some very interesting and engaging and insightful call-in shows over the last few last couple of nights regarding, of course, what's going on in college football, which involves the Pac-12 in particular. Got Matt Lowry on the line here to talk USC from Conquest Chronicles on SB Nation. Matt, how are we doing today?
We're doing pretty good, considering the news of the cancellation of the fall season. I mean, it's something that a lot of us look forward to. Usually around this time, we prepare for the first game. Particularly around this time, we would be preparing to talk about the Alabama game. But right now, it's more so of a lot of people have different mixtures of emotions in terms of the postponement or the cancellation of the fall season.
So before we get to USC's perspective on the Pac-12 cancellation, a couple of recruiting notes where Brandon Campbell out of Katy, Texas, running back 14th rated back in the nation, has announced that he's going to hit campus early. And also Jake Garcia, highly prized quarterback, is going to play high school football in Georgia this coming season.
Yeah, so there have been reports that that Jake Garcia was going to play high school football in the state of Georgia. The reason for this is because, as many people are aware of now, football has gotten pushed into January. So high school football in the state of California will start in January, which interferes with the prospect of, at the time, it was going to interfere with typically when commits enroll early. And I think Jake Garcia was planning on enrolling early, and that wouldn't have fit the timeline, playing high school football, and let alone he wasn't going to sit out and not play football for a whole year just to prepare for college. So he opted to go to Georgia, where they're going to play football in the fall as scheduled right now. With Brandon Campbell, he's in Texas. Texas is going to go on as planned right now from what we saw. But he's opting to go to USC early and to enroll early when potentially USC could start football season in the spring. And this came on the heels of the news of the Pac-12 canceling, their fall season.
Talking USC football, we got Matt Lowry on the line at a point in which we typically be setting up for the week one matchup with whomever it would be. Alabama would be the opponent originally scheduled here in 2020, and of course personnel breakdowns. But here we are with no football in sight for the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the MAC, and the Mountain West until possibly this spring. So based on everything you've heard out there, whether that be from a Keaton Slovis or a Clay Helton, all the way up through the hierarchy, the AD and so forth, what is USC talking about? What was their response to the Pac-12's decision? It was a unanimous decision, so we know at least at a high level that they were on board with the decision.
Well, it was more, there was a lot of uncertainty in regards to the pandemic and the ability to play fall sports in the current environment. And the same could be said across town with UCLA as well. Los Angeles County, as well as the state of California, is one of the hardest hit states in terms of the pandemic right now, is specifically with Los Angeles County being hit very hard with the coronavirus pandemic, and with cases skyrocketing, out of control and stuff like that. But with the response, and I know with Keaton Slovis, he stated that he had a feeling that it was going to happen a week ago, that they wouldn't be playing football in the spring. And I guess he said everybody found out, the news dropped when they were in the middle of lifting weights. And so right now it's more, there's a lot of questions right now in terms of what's going to happen. Everyone was asking, or I think the media was asking Talanoa Hufanga, what is he going to do come the spring? Is he going to play USC football, or is he going to forego the season and prepare for the NFL draft? And he said right now he's not in a rush to make that decision. He don't know what that decision is going to be, but he's trying to live in the present right now. And so that's I think that's the case with USC. And I think Clay Helton said it right now, or he said it best, is that it's a situation that's out of their control. You know, they're going to do the best they can to manage and to prepare for a spring season. And I think a lot of people knew that when the schedule initially came out, and when USC was supposed to play UCLA in the shortened season, and that game was talked about being pushed back into December. So the writing was pretty much on the wall. It was just a matter of time that this was bound to happen.
Is there any talk among players about trying to transfer to a conference that might be playing this fall?
There's been no talk of it as of now. I think Clay Helton addressed that. I think that was one of the questions he was asked was, is he worried about any players transferring to the ACC or the SEC or the Big 12 who initially plan on playing? And he said right now there hasn't been any talks of it. You know, I think Slovis said the same thing, that this is a close-knit group. This is a tight group. So right now, as of now, there's been no decision made of anybody trying to transfer. And if that is the case, if somebody's trying to transfer now, they would have to do it right about now to get there in time for football, for practices, and for camp. Because as of now, the only options are the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and I believe the Sun Belt are the only ones so far made a decision. I believe Conference USA made a decision too that they're going to play, because there's no FCS football right now. But as of now, there's no talks of anybody transferring from what we've heard.
Talking USC football with Matt Lowry. You can catch him on Conquest Chronicles. It's the SB Nation platform for the Trojans. And, of course, lock it in here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we go live. And check out the banner below about subscribing and some other good things that we have going on here at the voice of college football. So USC, of course, not playing. The Pac-12 has had a decline in terms of both real and perceived competitiveness across the nation just the last couple of years. I think if we go back 5 or 6 years, the Pac-12 was playing almost as good a football as anybody in the country, maybe save the SEC. But there's been a decline, and I think it's been a little overblown, but it's certainly real. A lot of talk surrounding the instability of the Pac-12 network. It's not been doing well anyway, and now you've got no fall sports that you can broadcast live, and specifically football that brings in the numbers and the ratings. The Big Ten seems to be better positioned based on the success of the Big Ten network, the success of the teams, and the revenue coming in. So, Matt, the last revenue sheet I saw that took into account the last college football season, the Big Ten, some people might be surprised that it wasn't the SEC, but the Big Ten brought in the most money per team at over $55 million in revenue per team. In the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big 12, there was really no last place. They were all about the same. At the bottom, around 28 to 30 million. So you're talking about half as much money for the entire league and per team. So there's some, while there are concerns about the Big Ten taking a hit, it seems better prepared to survive, whereas the Pac-12, there could be some real concerns about just the stability of the conference, the network, and how good the league's going to be coming out of this.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Pac-12 football has not been the best in terms of the nation's eye at this moment, and a lot of that comes from the quality of teams coming out of there, or how they're performing in bowl games or out of conference games. It's going to take, the Pac-12 right now is going to take a huge hit. It's going to take a massive blow, as you said. Not a lot of people can access the Pac-12 network as you could with the Big Ten, network. Not a lot of quality teams right now playing, or a lot of quality football, I should say, being played in the Pac-12. And all of that is, you go back and you look at what Larry Scott's doing, and a lot of people are going, well, why don't we have these quality teams? I've read somewhere that USC could be losing up to 50 to 60 million from no season in revenue from no season. No program should take a hit like that. And I think the Pac-12 they should have been in a better position to withstand this. But at the same time, you can't foresee a pandemic coming, but that raises a lot of questions, and a lot of people are going to be looking at Larry Scott like, why isn't the Pac-12, fumbling this? Why is the quality not that great? And especially when you go to a conference only model, a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to the college football playoff, if we have a college football playoff, it's going to be, why isn't the Pac-12 being looked at the way it should in terms of being one of the 4 teams in? Well, what quality teams do you have outside of Oregon right now? I mean, Utah was it, but we saw what happened with Utah. USC, when USC's USC's in the, the Trojans are in that talk, based off of name value alone. Pac-12 hasn't really had a team that has cracked into, that discussion or have got over the hump of getting into the college football playoff since Washington, I believe. I think Washington was the last team in the college football playoffs. And since the college football playoff started, only 2 teams out of the Pac-12 have made it into that Final Four group, Oregon and Washington. Stanford's been left on the outside looking in because of the quality of the conference. So that's never really a good look, where you only have, I would say, 1 team in a Power 5 conference that's always in the discussion, where the ACC, the Big Ten, and the SEC has at least 3 teams, maybe sometimes 4, that's in that discussion.
Yeah, Matt. So looking toward a possible spring season, not necessarily going to address it here because I've addressed it all over the place, unless you have your own opinion about whether a spring season is feasible. I don't, and I've explained it a zillion times, and so people can check out those videos. But in regards to USC, I know that it's early to speculate on this, but it's pretty clear cut who those top-notch NFL prospects are that might say, hey, I'm not going to play a spring season because I got to prepare for the NFL. And if the NFL doesn't move its combine and its draft, then it's going to be smack dab in the middle of a spring season. And if you're a top prospect and maybe even a lower level prospect, at the most severe case I could see here, Matt, think about it. 250 some players get drafted. But there's another 150. There's probably 400 plus total players that have hopes of getting drafted, that are on the radar, that are being scouted and projected to be drafted, more than 400 players. So if all those guys say, I got to prepare for the NFL draft to show out for scouts, I'm sure it's going to be a decision to make, where some of them, like a Justin Fields, it's just like, okay, I'm going to be a top 5 pick. I'm not playing. I'm getting ready. Where if somebody thinks they might be a 5th to 7th round or undrafted free agent type, they might want to play a half a college season to show something more on tape and then prepare for the NFL draft. I just think it'll be crazy to see players and the decisions they would make about weighing the staying with their team or preparing for the draft.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in terms of if a spring season happens. I mean, they're trying to make plans for that to happen, for football to be played. I believe, from what I saw, that plans of trying to play in February or start in January. I'm one of those people who I don't see how you can do spring football, at all. I don't think it's feasible to do it. just because I don't foresee the NFL moving back their calendar. We all know how stubborn the NFL can be in terms of moving back the calendar or pushing things back. And not only that, but the effects health-wise of playing football twice in 1 year, it's not really healthy to do. You know, you mean to tell me you're going to play 8 games of full contact of a full highly contact sport and then give them breaks, give them a break once we hit May or April or May, and then they got to do it again in September? It's not feasible to do. So that, you know, that's, like I said, I don't think that's feasible to do, but if it does happen, it's going to be a lot of decisions that's going to have to be made for players individually. Do you play half a season, try to get something on tape in time for the NFL draft, and hopefully, you know, that's enough to get you drafted? Or if you're for sure first, second, third round pick, do you go, you know what, I'm going to sit this season out. I'm going to go through the workouts. I'm going to attend the combine and all this other stuff and prepare for the draft. It's going to be a lot of important decisions being made. And that's going to be, you know, that's really something that everybody's going to look at, because there was already an uproar in terms of sitting out bowl games. And remember, that was the big topic of discussion the last few years. There are first, second round players sitting out the bowl games or foregoing the bowl games to prepare for the draft. We're talking about a full season here in the spring, not knowing what the NFL is going to do with their draft and their combine. So I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of players are going to have to make important decisions if there is a spring season. If there is, I'm interested to see what players are going to sit out, you know, and what players are going to play. How long are they going to play? You know, are they going to play the full season? If we have 8 games to say, if we have 7, 8 games and then go into a playoff, or are they going to play half of a season and then sit out the rest of it just to get ready for the draft? Those are decisions that everybody's going to look at closely and see how this plays out. But for all the factors that was just brought up, it's pretty hard to see a spring season happen. I mean, if they're going to do it, I think the reason they're going to do it, or they try to do it, is to try to recoup the money that was lost from not having a fall season. But a lot of presidents and even even the commissioners, they're going to have to make a decision on how they're going to do this.
Yeah, it doesn't really work for me because of trying to fit in. Let's say we pare it down to 8 games. They're going to give the kids, I would say, a couple bye weeks. So that's a 10-week season. And if you start the first week of February, then you're playing until the end of April. And then you're going to get in a conference championship game and the college football playoff. Even if you wipe out all the bowl games and just play a college football playoff, well, they play a game and then they take like 10 days off of the championship game. So the championship game is going to be in mid-May. Then you're going to be asking these student athletes to turn around at the end of July and start practicing again for another season. Maybe they put rep limits on players, and only, and the deeper teams are going to have a huge advantage because they put kind of a pitch count on these players. I don't know, but that's the season in and of itself right there, and that's the first week of February. But they obviously have to have what would be an August camp in January. Well, that takes us back to Christmas time, that these student athletes would have to arrive on campus to start to work out. So it just doesn't seem to work for me. I know Urban Meyer's been on record in particular as kind of outlining the number of hits and punishment that a body can take as a football player in a calendar year. And, it's something that he tracked at all his stops, Ohio State, Florida, that they would even keep a count. And that's why some of their better players, their veteran players as juniors and seniors, wouldn't even take many reps in practice in terms of actual live hits.
And I know Purdue put out something on how you could do a spring season and then have a fall season, and it involves shortening up the fall season and having a 10 game season. But at the same time, Urban Meyer mentioned it and you mentioned it. It's only so many hits a body can take in a season, in a full year at that. So if we're asking these kids play, then turn around, prepare for camp again in August, and then play in September, that, and even going into to mid-September or late September, you're going to be crunching the season pretty well, and that's not ideal.
None of this is ideal. I think the only positive that could come out of this, besides some intangibles, like some people just kind of assessing their own values and priorities in life, but in terms of tangibles, the only for the college football fan would be if the three conferences play this fall and they play their championship game as is typically scheduled at the beginning of January, and then the other conferences start a spring season, is that for the football fan that likes to see as much football as possible, and they would be able to focus on the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC for that football season, then be able to watch a whole brand new football season right after it, highlighted by the Pac-12 and the Big 10.
Yeah, that would be
one big long football season, Matt, that would extend from September all the way to like May.
Yeah, that's a college football fan's dream. That's a dream right there. But it would be interesting to see. To go watch ACC, SEC, and Big 12. Then you move into Pac-10, or not Pac-10, but Pac-12, Big 10, Mountain West, and all the other conferences go at it too. And so
then here's a crazy idea that's never going to happen, but I'll just throw it out there. Whoever won the first half, meaning the fall season, takes on the winner of the spring season, and there's your national championship game. But of course, that's not going to happen. There'd be a huge disadvantage to sit around for 3 or 4 months waiting to play a championship game.
Yeah.
All right. You see it on the banner right there, conquestchronicles.com, SB Nation. Matt Lowry, please join him and the rest of the staff right there. Matt, we appreciate you stopping by. As you know, you're always welcome. And if you got any USC news for us, just let us know.